families in Virginia.
Making progress means taking on tough fights, and as governor, I won't let Donald Trump stand in our way.
Breaking news tonight. In his own words, before he testifies tomorrow for the first time, we hear James Comey's side of the story. Explosive details about private conversations with President Trump. What he says the president did in an effort to influence the Russia investigation. And we have late word from the president's lawyer. Also tonight, President Trump's surprise pick to replace Comey at the FBI. Twin attacks right in the heart of Iran's capital as ISIS claims responsibility for its first major strike inside the country. Kids and migraines, new advice from doctors on how to stop them before they start, what parents should be looking for, and honoring the bravest, families on an inspiring journey to turn the scene of a tragedy into a lasting tribute. Nightly News begins right now.
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening. It's great to have you here tonight. We got a big surprise late today from fired FBI Director James Comey on the eve of his highly anticipated public appearance before a Senate committee. Comey's written testimony was released this afternoon. 7 potentially explosive pages in which he describes in great detail uncomfortable and concerning conversations with President Trump about the Russia investigation, his preoccupation with having his name publicly cleared, and the president, he says, urging him to drop the investigation into Michael Flynn. Comey so rattled by their encounters, he says he took steps to avoid being with Mr. Trump alone. NBC News Justice correspondent Pete Williams has details.
James Comey gives a dramatic account, often in vivid detail, of 5 one-on-one conversations with Donald Trump. The first with President-elect Trump in New York, January 6th, a briefing on the investigation of Russia's election meddling and salacious claims about to become public that Mr. Trump was involved with prostitutes 4 years earlier in Moscow, something Trump has vehemently denied. Comey says he thought about whether to give an assurance that Mr. Trump was not under investigation. That was true, Comey says. We did not have an open counterintelligence case on him. I offered that assurance. Comey says he decided right then to document his conversations with Mr. Trump and began typing the notes on a laptop as he rode away from Trump Tower in an FBI car. Next meeting, dinner at the White House, January 27th. Comey says the president told him, I need loyalty. I expect loyalty. Comey says, I didn't move, speak, or change my facial expression in any way during the awkward silence that followed, but later answered, you will always get honesty from me. He also told the president that the FBI was not investigating Mr. Trump personally. In his interview with Lester Holt, the president said Comey requested the dinner.
A dinner was arranged. I think he asked for the dinner. And he wanted to stay on as the FBI head.
But Comey says Mr. Trump called him with the invitation. And he says he got the feeling it was an effort to have me ask for my job and create some kind of patronage relationship. Next, February 14th, after an Oval Office intelligence briefing, the day after National Security Advisor Michael Flynn was forced to resign. He quotes the president as saying, I hope you can see your way clear to letting this go, to letting Flynn go. He's a good guy. Comey says, I did not say I would let this go, adding I had understood the president to be requesting that we drop any investigation of Flynn into whether Flynn made false statements about his conversations with Russia's ambassador to the U.S. But Comey says, I did not understand the president to be talking about the broader investigation into Russia or possible links to his campaign. Comey says he remembers leaving the Oval Office through the door by the grandfather clock and that he told only a few people about it because he didn't want to let the FBI investigators know about a request that the FBI had no intention of granting. After that, he says, he asked Attorney General Jeff Sessions to prevent any further direct communications with the president, but he says Sessions did not reply. March 30th, Comey says the president called him at the FBI and asked what we could do to lift the cloud of the Russia allegations, adding, quote, that he had nothing to do with Russia, had not been involved with hookers in Russia, and had always assumed he was being recorded when in Russia. Comey replied that he had told congressional leaders that the FBI was not investigating Mr. Trump, who responded, we need to get that fact out, and added if there were some satellite associates of his who did something wrong, it would be good to find that out. 2 weeks later, Comey says the president called again and asked what I had done about his request that I get out, that he is not personally under investigation. Comey says the president added, I have been very loyal to you, very loyal. We had that thing, you know. Comey says he didn't ask what the president meant by that thing. Comey never says in the prepared statement that he thought the president's remarks amounted to obstruction of justice, and a former federal prosecutor says there's no sign of that.
And they create an inference of an attempt to influence a pending investigation. That alone is not enough to make an obstruction case, but that's a big piece of it.
Comey says he met with President Trump 3 times and talked with him on the phone 6 times. By contrast, he met with President Obama twice and never felt the need to take notes. Tonight, the president's outside lawyer says Mr. Trump is pleased that Comey publicly confirmed that the president was not under investigation, adding, the president feels completely and totally vindicated. Lester?
All right, Pete Williams, thank you. And the fallout from Comey's statement was swift, part of a very busy day across the Capitol, as lawmakers demanded to know from top members of the intelligence community if President Trump ever asked them to intervene in the investigation. We get those details now from our chief White House correspondent Hallie Jackson.
Cheers from Team Trump as the president arrived at the White House. But silence from him when asked about James Comey's testimony. From the Republican National Committee, back up. President Trump was right, its chairwoman says. Director Comey's statement reconfirmed what the president has been saying all along. He was never under investigation.
Do you believe Jim Comey's version of the facts?
Hard to tell. I mean, I want to hear Jim say it.
His statement reads more like a Tom Clancy novel.
Republicans on Capitol Hill, so far, cautious.
I haven't seen it. I've just heard briefly.
Mostly.
Ultimately, I think the purpose of the hearing is to figure out if what we're reading in the newspaper is true and what does it mean.
Comey's testimony teeing up what some describe as a political Super Bowl tomorrow. With today, a kind of pregame. At the dais, not the fired FBI director, but the man who replaced him and 3 other top intelligence officials, facing questions about reports the president asked some of them to get involved in the FBI's Russia investigation.
I do not recall ever feeling pressured to do so.
I have never felt pressure to intervene or interfere in any way.
Asked to elaborate, they didn't.
I'm not going to discuss the specifics of conversations with the President of the United States.
It's inappropriate for me to share that with the public.
I'm not going to answer any questions,
Okay.
Senator.
Why are you not answering
Because I
our
feel
questions?
it is inappropriate, Senator.
What you feel isn't relevant, Admiral. What you feel isn't the answer.
So why didn't you get answers?
You'll have to ask them. I was obviously very unhappy about it. That was the whole purpose of my questioning.
The committee's top Republican, Justice Sharp.
At no time should you be in a position where you come to Congress without an answer.
So not many answers today, but senators will be demanding them from Comey tomorrow, because while they're already seeing his initial statement, it's the questions after that could give more insight into the president's actions. Comey's opening statement, really only the beginning. Lester?
Hallie Jackson in Washington, thanks. Let's bring in our political director, the moderator of Meet the Press, Chuck Todd. Chuck, with all the information we heard from that statement today, talk to me about the questions that will likely drive the Comey hearing tomorrow.
Well, look, I think the first question is going to be, there are 3 conversations that Comey had one-on-one with the president that he does not detail in this opening statement. So that's probably going to be among the first questions. What about the other 3 encounters? Anything of significance there? But look, on the big, I think the drill down that I expect a lot of, the code word satellite associates, that the president himself is at least introducing that idea that it's possible someone with his campaign may have been doing something that he didn't know about. But let me tell you something else somebody looking for, Lester, and I know we're going to be talking about this tomorrow as well when we're together. How do the Republicans question Comey? How many of them look like they're questioning him on behalf of the sort of defense of the president, and how many of them are not worrying about the president? We'll be able to tell based on the tone of those questions, and the president is going to find out how much Republican capital he really has left on Capitol Hill.
All right, Chuck, thanks. And I will see you in Washington tomorrow. We'll have special live coverage of the Comey hearing tomorrow morning beginning at 10 a.m. Eastern here on NBC. Amid all of this, the president made an unexpected announcement this morning, catching top lawmakers off guard by naming the man he wants to replace James Comey at the FBI. He's being described as a conventional choice made public in a rather unconventional way, as NBC's Kristen Welker tells us.
President Trump unleashing his own surprise on Twitter today, describing his FBI pick, Christopher Wray, as a man of impeccable credentials. But there was no White House Rose Garden ceremony like the last 4 announcements of the FBI director, and no courtesy heads up for lawmakers.
I did learn about it from Twitter, but then
Including Senator Charles Grassley of Iowa, who will conduct the confirmation hearings. Even some White House officials seemed out of the loop. Still, one administration official tells NBC News the president picked Wray because he's widely respected and has bipartisan support.
The risk increases.
Wray, a white-collar criminal defense attorney, served as head of the Justice Department's criminal division under George W. Bush for 2 years, where he reported to then Deputy Attorney General James Comey. One potential flashpoint at his confirmation hearing, Wray was also New Jersey Governor Chris Christie's personal attorney during the Bridgegate scandal.
He has the respect of law enforcement. He has the respect of the prosecutors. He has the respect of the defense bar.
Retired FBI Special Agent Joe Roebuck worked with Wray.
I said that they would support him and be excited to work for him like I was, and that he was a true patriot.
If confirmed, Wray will take the helm of an agency still investigating the Russia matter.
He's going to be a leader who understands what they do and who will promote the independence of the Bureau.
Today, the reaction was largely positive from both sides of the aisle. In 2003, Wray was confirmed unanimously to become the Assistant Attorney General. Lester.
Kristen Welker at the White House. Thank you. Turning overseas now, where ISIS has now claimed responsibility for a pair of rare terror attacks in Iran's capital. At least 12 people were killed and 42 others injured in near simultaneous attacks on parliament and a shrine in Tehran. The first terror incidents there in decades. As our Bill Neely explains, ISIS gunmen recorded one of those attacks as it happened.
Under attack as never before, Iran's parliament. 4 ISIS gunmen inside, killing at will. They'd got in dressed as women. Iran's elite guards pinned down for 4 hours. Parliament locked down. Children escaping from windows. A woman, too, wearing a flak jacket. The ISIS gunmen had time to film a propaganda video boasting of their first attack inside Iran. Within minutes, a second attack on a symbol of the country and of Iran's power in the region. ISIS striking the shrine of the founder of modern Iran. A female suicide bomber blowing herself up at the tomb of Ayatollah Khomeini. A gunman opening fire. All 6 terrorists died. All were from Iran. In a statement, the president sympathized with the victims, but said states that sponsor terrorism risk falling victim to the evil they promote. In Tehran, shock.
This is like nothing we've seen in Iran in 30 years. Iran and ISIS are ideological enemies that hate one another, and we can see the evidence of that today. ISIS hit one of their biggest enemies.
Iran's supreme leader is vowing to hit back at ISIS in Syria and Iraq. For ISIS, losing ground there, this attack was a morale boost. For Iran, an embarrassment. For the region, bad news. Revenge in the air. Bill Neely, NBC News.
Back home for the second day, a woman accusing comedian Bill Cosby of sexual assault was on the stand in his trial in Pennsylvania. Today, Cosby's defense continued cross-examining her, focusing on what it believes are inconsistencies in her story. NBC's Stephanie Gosk has more on the dramatic testimony.
At times today, Bill Cosby seemed relaxed, even joking with security, while his accuser, Andrea Constand, faced tough questions from defense attorney Angela Agrusa, who tried to pick apart her story. Constand alleges the comedian drugged and sexually assaulted her in 2004. Agrusa pointed out that Constand's statements to police changed, specifically the date of the assault. Agrusa focused on 2 private dinners at Cosby's home before the alleged assault, at one point saying you hadn't told the officers that you had wine and brandy and sat by a fire and put your legs near one another. Constand said police never asked. Agrusa questioned her, "You knew he was interested in you romantically?" Constand replied, "No, ma'am."
Inevitably, there's going to be inconsistencies.
They also want to try to undermine her credibility, right? Have they done that?
Hey, they've done it some.
District Attorney Kristen Fedden hit back hard after Agrusa tediously highlighted phone records, line by line, to show Constand called Cosby 53 times after the alleged assault. Fedden asked, was he on the board of trustees at the place where you were employed? Yes. So when he called you, you called back.